Bonjour, it's Théo. If you're watching my videos often, you maybe want to move to France, in Paris or in other cities in France, and you maybe want to live in my country. So in today's video, I wanted to give you some tips to be accepted by French people, to feel at home in this new country, whether you are coming for just a few months if you are a student, or if you want to spend your life in France. Because beside learning French, that is really important if you want to live in France, you will have to understand many habits, many things about French people and the French culture to really feel accepted and feel at home in this country. If you are just coming for a few months because it's your studies and you're making an exchange, you won't have to understand everything. It's okay. But if you want to move to France or to live and work for a few years, you will have to discover what is the real French culture. And we're gonna talk about it in today's video. If you don't know me, my name is Théo and I talk about Paris and the French way of life on this YouTube channel. I make one video every day, so don't forget to subscribe. The first thing to understand is the difference between Paris and the countryside. If you are going to other big cities in France like Lyon, Bordeaux, Marseille, it will still be the same as Paris, except that in the south it's hotter and you have the beach and the seaside. Paris is really centralized, you have everything in Paris, but if you go to the countryside, sometimes it can be a bit weird because we have something called the Diagonale du Vide, the empty diagonal, and it's a part of France where there is not that many people. If you are going there for the retirement or to have a new French funny life, it will be a bit weird because not many people are living there. It's almost like just farms and fields, sometimes forests and mountains, but not really a lot to do. So if you want to move to France, you should go to big cities because if you are from the US, for example, the big cities in France are small cities for you. Like it's still human scale city. Even Paris is the biggest city in France, but it's still really easy to find your way in Paris. It's not that big compared to other cities. You have many people living there, but everything is close to the other. With public transportation, you can go anywhere you want. So even if you want the calm, you can find some small cities near the seaside, for example, where you will have a good life. If you want to feel accepted by French people, you need to understand the habits in France. We have many things, many habits that create the French culture. For example, if you want to talk about work on a Sunday, nobody is doing that because Sunday is usually a rest day. Talking about work, if you want to send a text to someone, to a coworker at 10 p.m., usually you can't really, especially if you are the boss, you can't just talk about work outside of the work hours with your colleagues because it's not the time for that. A big thing about the French people is also the food. The food is really important. If you want to connect with French people, you need to spend time when you are having food, when you are eating, and you should not just think about the efficiency about the food. Don't just eat to feed yourself. Eat to create a social moment, a community moment with the people around you. And usually in France, you will have 1 hour and a half for the lunch break. And it's usually the time where the colleagues and the co-workers are creating the community together and exchanging something, you know. In France, we have usually 3 meals a day, breakfast, lunch and dinner. And you have also the apéro, the pre-dinner time where you can have a drink with the friends, and it's a big part of the social life. So you need to understand all these social moments around food to really feel accepted by French people. Also, discover more about the French food and the history of the French food, like all the different regional dishes. If you're talking to someone from Bordeaux and you talk about magret de canard, foie gras, you will be friends with him. Food has a big importance in the heart of French people, and if you are sharing the same favorite dish, you will become friends. It's really important to discover the French food, to eat the French food and to eat the French food with the French people to really feel that you're part of this country. After the food, you also need to learn more about the history of France. If you're coming here, you will see that people are really connected to their history, so you need to learn more about first the kings, for example, Louis XIV, who is one of the most powerful, also some emperor like Napoleon, but also the French Revolution, the democracy, the republic. At least you need to understand the modern history of France, like after World War II. And for that, you can just check what we call the Fifth Republic. From Charles de Gaulle to Macron, it's the actual democracy that we have in France. And if you check each of the presidents and you understand more about them, you will have more information about the political context in France. By the way, if you want to learn more about the politics, I've made few videos about the legislative elections, so you can check it out. The politics especially is a big subject in France. We talk a lot about the political context and the political news. We talk a lot about it at any time with everyone, from the friends to the family to the co-workers. You usually talk a lot about politics, so you need also to be aware of that. And you need to understand how the democracy works in France, how the president, the parliament, the Assemblée nationale are working. You need to understand that. And if you want, I can make also other videos to talk about it. Tell me in the comments if you would be interested. With the politics, you also need to understand the freedom of speech that we have, the type of jokes, the type of comedy, how French people make jokes. We have a lot of sarcasm, irony, we call it the second degree, the second degree. It's like a second layer of jokes that you have sometimes in the French jokes. And if you want to understand that, you need to talk to French people, sometimes to ask them to explain the joke, or also to watch some French comedy or French movies to learn more about how it works. But the freedom of speech is something really important. People are complaining a lot in France, but also they are also debating a lot. They are sharing their thoughts and their opinions. And it's really important in France to share that because it's part of the French democracy, the French debate. Talking a lot, sharing your opinion, it's really important. So don't hesitate to have some opinion and to debate and to try to learn more about the philosophy, the democracy, the republic. All those things will help you to have your own opinions. And it's really important in France to share that and to be part of the public debate. It's already a lot of stuff to discover. The history, the politics, the jokes, it's a lot. But if you want to start with something, you need to understand first who are the French people, how are they working, and is the cliché and the stereotypes you maybe have about them, are they true? Usually, it's not really true. We think about French people as people that are cold, arrogant, a bit too sophisticated. It's not really like that. It can happen in Paris, but it's not always that. The big thing about French people is that we are in Europe, in the middle of the Northern Europe and the Mediterranean countries. The people in Northern Europe will be more organized, more calm, but also sometimes not always friendly. This is a big picture, it's not really true, it's just a big picture. In the Mediterranean Europe, sometimes they are more rude, they talk loud, they are really expressive, but they are also really good friends. So you are between both of these dimensions when you are living in France. French people are a mix of both. We will be kind of cold sometimes, a bit sophisticated like the North, but also loud and complaining and be really friendly, really warm like the Mediterranean countries. We are a mix of both. So in fact, we are not that cold. We are not friendly, but we are friends. In France, sometimes the first impression will be a bit weird because usually we don't talk that much to other people in the streets. Like we are a bit afraid of the strangers in the street because sometimes they just want to ask for money or to scam us. So we won't talk to new people easily except in a bar or in a social moment. But French people can be a bit cold at first, but when you take the time to understand them and to be part of this social circle, you will be real friends. I've seen that with friends and families. Sometimes in a group you have people that are not always kind or a bit annoying, and they are still invited because they are part of the group. And it's important in France, when you are part of the group, you will be invited. People are loyal together, you know. People, when you are part of the group, you're part of the family. Friends can be part of the family, and we can create a connection, like an intimacy with people, kind of easily when you're part of the social group. Sometimes it's different with the co-workers, but I know people that even with their co-workers, they became friends. And they are seeing each other beside the work, and they are sometimes going on vacation together. I remember my mom, she was working in insurance when I was a kid, and she was telling me that she went to Greece or to Turkey with the friends and the co-workers. They went all together in vacations. So it can happen in France, this part of social circle that are kind of a family. We are not always friendly, but we are real friends. That's what you need to think about. After talking about the history, the politics and the French people, something really important to understand in France is that you have a legit culture and a pop culture. And it's two different worlds. The legit culture, it's the culture of the bourgeois, the rich people, the sophisticated people. And if you are living in Paris, for example, and you want to network and be connected with the high society or the institutions, you will have to understand a little bit more about the legit culture. talk about the books, the poetry, the philosophy, learn more about Voltaire, Victor Hugo, Stendhal and the big authors of the 19th century. Usually it's the things that you learn in high education. Like in the universities in France that are not accessible to everyone, if you can have a little bit of this culture, you will be seen as someone smarter or more interesting in some social circles or some high society. So it's also something that you need to think about if you want to get a higher social status in France. This is one part of the French culture, but if you want to really be part of France, you need to understand the pop culture in France. The movies, the music. You need to learn what is the French variété, the variété française. Some singers from the 60s and the 70s. You need to listen to French music, but also to watch French movies, especially the comedy. The comedy is a big genre in France, it's really important. And I remember watching all the movies with Louis de Funès when I was a kid. And it's a big part also of the French culture, especially in older generations. When you talk about a de Funès movie, everyone knows what you're talking about. For my heart, it's really important also, so don't forget to watch the de Funès movies. I also made a video about French movies you should watch, so don't hesitate to check it out if you want to have an example of 5 French movies you should absolutely watch. It's a good video to start. I think I said most of the biggest tips to get accepted in France, but I think that if I have one thing to tell you, one most important, maybe the most important, is to take the time, to spend the time with the French people. Don't think always about the efficiency of your life if you are living in France. You will have to spend 5 hours for dinner with the French people because we want to talk a lot and to share our point of view about life. You will have to take a lunch break of 2 hours with your coworkers to understand more about them. You will have to spend time with us because it's when you are spending this time that is not always efficient, not always in the productivity and the work, that you will be really connected with the French people. So if you want to be accepted by French people, you need to spend time with them without expecting anything in return. Just spend the time because you enjoy the time. Enjoy the moment, the social moment, and it's at that time you will be friends with us. That's it for today's video. I hope it helped you a lot. Tell me in the comments if you have other tips to share about living in France and being accepted in France. And if you had some experiences, good or bad experiences with the French people, don't hesitate to share them in the comments so we can all improve together and share our thoughts about it. Of course, if you want to explore Paris and discover the French way of life, you can subscribe to this YouTube channel. I post every single day, so see you tomorrow.